So Minnie, maybe we can start off with you on intros, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Paul, for that. And hello, everybody. I am Minnie TT. I am into industrial cybersecurity for quite so many years now. Somewhere in the 2000s, 2015, 16 onwards, I am into industrial security. Primarily, my focus is in product development, research and development, product engineering. So R&D engineering, that is the kind of focus that I have. And from a academic point of view, I'm right now doing my PhD into cybersecurity, which is focused on a hardware
Oh,
embedded system security. And as a mainstream work, I work with Celestica. Celestica is providing data center infrastructure products. So I look after the security of those product development. So you could feel free to look up the website. There is quite a list of products in the cloud compute solutions. So I look after the product security in the development phase, both the SDL, the secure development processes, as well as the security of requirements within the product. Say things like, say, hardware root of trust, certificate management, how secure elements. I'm a long timer in the industry. I had started with defense. Government of India defense is where I started my career. And from there, I have worked into different domains, semiconductors, consumer electronics, and all my industrial cybersecurity knowledge came when I was working in ABB. That is where I created my base. And from then, I'm with security all the time. Did a lot of certification, did a lot of conference talk presentation, these kind of events, even publications, patents, all those kind of things. Like once I started with security, I did so many of them.
yep.
So here I am.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great to have you. Kunal, maybe if you could go next. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Unlike many of the people both on the panel and the conference, I'm kind of a relatively OT security noob. So I started my kind of career on the IT and IT security side. In my most recent kind of big corporate role, I was working for a large oil and gas company, and that's when I started looking at the IT security side. And went through that journey of the IT security side and then transitioned to OT security. And that's when I realized the complexity that OT security gives it has compared to IT security. And that's when I started to dive deep completely both from a engagement perspective as well as a technology perspective. And that's where I've kind of started building my skills in OT security. I don't think the journey is ever complete. But yeah, that's kind of my background here. Currently also part of OT security professionals, where we're a community where we help people both in OT security and interested in OT security bring up their kind of upskill themselves, get more information, and kind of get people together.
Great. And then Shamik.
Hi everyone. Good evening, good morning, in whichever region you are. I'm basically an industrial automation professional turned into cybersecurity professional because we were doing quite a few things related to networking and cybersecurity, and I was like, there is a huge potential there, and that Ukraine power grid attack that basically triggered the whole transition. Currently, I'm as Kunal bhai has already mentioned, we are all three are part of OT security professionals. We are trying to bridge the gap between what industry demands and what us professionals have at the moment. So we are all trying to be in a sync globally. Uh, Apart from that, I'm working with Kunal bhai in Beacon Security. We are helping our customer with OT cybersecurity solutions, risk assessments, trainings, and product security certification as well. So that's a brief about me. Thanks.
Outstanding. So we'll get started with our first question of the panel here. So the question is, when you think of a strong cybersecurity culture in an industrial setting, what does that look like to each of you? And maybe if we start with yourself.
Yeah. See, my background all through in the cybersecurity was in product development. In the sense of when you develop a product, from the time you conceive the product as a concept, how do you develop your requirements, architecture, the software development, hardware development, How do you validate them? And even the post release, after you have sold the product, how do you keep it up to date with respect to the security patches that might be coming up? Or if you are identifying some kind of vulnerabilities in the released product, how do you deal with it? This is the kind of spectrum of work which I'm mostly looking at. So in this, the processes are important. There's the SDL practices both from till you do the release, that is your development stage, testing, validation, and after you have released, and when the customers are using it in a running system, what challenges are there from your owner operators kind of people who are using the system? Well, their challenges, you give a patch, okay, how we can have a regular cadence for releasing the patches, or if there is some kind of say the heartbleed kind of once, if something that comes up, uh, so or the SolarWinds event, or there, or Log4j that happened. So if those kind of security issues comes up, like the Apache Log4j, how do we act on it? What processes we can follow in dealing with the CVEs? Like how can we respond fast, and how can we reduce the window of time where the customers have a time to respond and update their system, and also how can they minimize the effort for updating all the systems? So it's easy to develop and give a patch. At the same time, how can they take it and then apply it uniformly, consistently, with very minimal reduced downtime? That is one part. And the one part before the release, that's quite like what I see from a culture point of view is, a lot of times I see that many individuals, both the learning people, learners, as well as some of the experienced one, get carried away with tools. So if you ask what you do, you will say, okay, I am running Black Duck, I am running Coverity, I am running static code analysis, I am doing the scan, the Nessus call is, you get lots of Rapid7, all those kind of tools. You get a lot of tools, and people get so much bogged down by this running the tool and satisfying the tool and making the tool happy. But
Right.
that is not the way to do. That is very proactive approach, because the tool can find only after you have created something wrong.
Right.
So before
Kunal.
the tool, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah.
And then Kunal, yourself?
Yeah. So I think echoing on what Minnie's been saying, right? A lot of times what I've realized kind of across projects, across companies, that it's not about buying tech. A lot of times cybersecurity culture is not about buying tech, right? I mean, she mentioned that like, it's like, yeah, you have technology, buying technology is easy, right? Cybersecurity culture is kind of more about what you do when no one's watching, what do you do when in your day-to-day life? Do you have that mindset to look at or kind of keep that in mind in your daily practices, daily operations, or cybersecurity lens, right? And that's when kind of making sure that you have consistent messaging, right? Consistent messaging that from the leadership, from the C-suite that comes down, and making sure that especially from OT security, this in effect means an operational risk, not just IT governance. Normally kind of IT governance means, okay, do kind of follow processes, but this, if something goes wrong in OT security, that really will impact safety, risk, people lives, and also kind of influence kind of our operational continuity. So that's something that's very important to kind of put that in from a mindset perspective and a culture perspective. Continue doing that regularly in regular cadences, and that's where I see kind of cybersecurity culture being essential to success of any cybersecurity program, especially on the OT side.
Shamik?
Yes, these two gentlemen have already, covered the maturity area of it. But what I would say it from an asset owner's perspective, the culture means you have, your brains are programmed in such a way that anywhere, whatever activity you do, you look after security, cyber security of whatever aspect that you are doing. Start from procurement. You look for secure component. Then during the integration, you look for maybe threat modeling or third party risk or integration related risk that may emerge, that may potentially provide any cyber threats. So or during operations, if you have an USB stick, you should have a thought first that what if it has something bad. So for me, a cyber secured culture means everybody and anybody who is doing their job, they need to think cyber first.
Good deal. So I'm wondering if, as we've talked a little bit about kind of the back end or software, in the context of software development, and then maybe we'll start off with you. what are the effective strategies for continuing to foster that strong cybersecurity culture, and how can the organization ensure a long-term commitment? Because a lot of times when you put a program in place, you start out with momentum, but then over time that can degrade, and how do you continue that from a long-term commitment for the development team?
Kunal, you want to answer or?
Sure, I can take that. So this is kind of making sure you have the right systems, and for me, ensuring long term is making sure you have the right systems, the right processes in place. Just like when you set up any program, cybersecurity is kind of very similar, right? It's not about, well, it is about technology as well, but primarily it's about people and process, right? Ensuring that you have the right governance in place, especially, and the buy-in from a leadership perspective. From what I've seen, the big difference that comes in between successful OT security programs and not so successful OT security programs is the buy-in from leadership and the culture that leadership sets in from the ground up, right? If you have that voice coming in, well, this is part of your annual review. For example, if leadership puts that in, that you need to achieve 10% reduction in OT cybersecurity risk to the plant managers, well, that's affecting their salaries, that's affecting their bonus, and then they have to do that, right? So establishing that from a culture, from a visibility perspective, and getting buy-in from the leadership, I think that is for me the biggest kind of driver between a successful OT security program and not so successful one.
So to add to that, what from my experience, what I have seen is the initial momentum that comes. But then if your processes also defines when do we refine and when do we revise. Say, for example, there could be internal compliance specification, which is in line with the external standards. At what time do this kind of internal compliance standards being going to be revised? Do you already have a definition? Or we create one internal compliance standard, you follow it and it naturally get diluted, or you say this is the period of time when we will revise this. So those who have a very specific cadence for revising the compliance spec, keep it active and alive. That's what the personal experience which I'm talking from the organizations where I was working.
Okay. I'm wondering, Shamik, maybe with the work that you do in assisting organizations, with the complexity of the global nature of like hardware supply chains, and the dependencies that we have from organization to organization, how can a company or for your clients or in the engagements that they're in, what are the most effective strategies for enhancing security and mitigating risks, within that culture? How do you bring that to the forefront for the organization?
As far as initiating that culture, I had one, with one of our clients. It was very unconventional thing to do, which they initiated. What they did was they knew that the mindset of people is such that if you force them to do something, they will do it, as if they were doing for the sake of it. So what
Okay.
they did, uh, they started with personal cybersecurity awareness. There are so many financial frauds going on. There are quite a few things there that are going on which are hacking people's laptop, stealing their credential, and uh, mailing them with their social security number or Aadhaar numbers, and mailing them that I have all this information and I have some sensitive information about you, and you need to give us this much money, otherwise we'll release it or we'll make it viral, or that kind of a thing. So they started with awareness campaign about personal cybersecurity, so that everybody started to take things seriously, not to click on suspicious link. And then the next phase of their program was about how to turn that personal awareness into organizational level cybersecurity awareness. So as a result, they were able to do it in as a long term growth they saw in cybersecurity awareness. Definitely that is not the only solution. They also had to put those policies and procedure, as Kunal bhai mentioned, consequences driven program. where if you don't do certain things, if you fail, if you fail that phishing link every now and then probably you need to go through certain trainings and some performance evaluation. All these things will be there. But yeah, basically some innovative approach that I came across, that was this one. Then start with personal and then go for the organization.
Kunal or Mini?
Yeah, see, one more thing which I saw in many companies was there is an active groups which are knowledge sharing group, like regularly meet and share knowledge. And there are a lot of contest and competitions that happen in the even within the company and even outside the company. Contest and competitions like maybe paper presentation, or where it can be road shows, or how do we show what you have done, a demo of the features. So develop the curiosity into cybersecurity. That's one thing which I have seen, like especially with engineers who are very new to the cybersecurity world, the basics of cryptography and various other fundamental topics, develop curiosity into it. And in fact, one truth is this is a very interesting topic. The cybersecurity learning is a very interesting topic. So once you are able to develop curiosity, it works. And many companies also have, there are like they give credibility. There are certain trainings which is a belting scheme, that okay, you have your yellow belt, blue belt, black belt, all that. So there is a belting scheme, and as you progress, it also is a credibility for individuals. So like that, there is a reward mechanism, also an engaging mechanism that happens, that okay, people get into it with a natural curiosity, as well as okay, this is having value.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think what Mini and Shamik mentioned, that's very valuable. And with that comes in, because as OT security professionals, you can only do so much, right? You only have so much time, that you don't have unlimited resources, and you don't have people in every plant, right? So identifying those champions, like I've talked to multiple kind of practitioners, and identifying those champions in those teams, in those plants is really essential, because they can be your voice. They can be your kind of messenger for cybersecurity issues. If they're kind of something initial troubleshooting, it's much easier to talk to somebody who is in the plant, somebody who you worked with before. So identifying those champions and making sure that they are there and they're ready to answer questions and help troubleshoot the initial problems, give actual feedback from on the ground. Is this working, not working? That's essential, right? So yeah, getting kind of establishing that culture, identifying champions is great.
Outstanding. I was thinking, Shamik, when you and I were chatting, it was, as the time zones go, it was either yesterday or earlier today, but we were talking about, and Minnie, you had touched on this in the training, or, making it something that gets people interested. And Shamik, you and I talked about the gamifications or creative methods to get people involved. What are some of the experiences that you've had? Because I've had some limited experience to that, but we are seeing a rise in, cyber sports, especially for high school, university, colleges, to get the young kids, as you were talking about, Minnie. But where do you see gamification becoming a relatable component to a cybersecurity culture, Shamik?
It's very relatable, I would say. When you just imagine hearing about cybersecurity from a professor kind of a person for 2 hours, 1.5 hours, or 3 hours straight, how is gonna make you feel? Very bored, right? Not you, because you love cybersecurity, but people who are working in plant, the operators, engineers, they don't
Right.
want to. They are not an expert on cybersecurity. So they need to be fed that content in a manner in which they would get the interest. So gamification, usually. What we do is we design our tabletop exercises in such a way that everybody feels like there is something that has directly impacted them, and they also are curious to know that why the hell did that happen. So gamification is usually gets more attention, and that is also a very good way to remember that thing. If there is a scenario which they have experienced, then that will not come close to any of those lectures or training materials that we may give.
Outstanding. I was wondering, and I know for me that sometimes I'm confusing like governance and compliance with the culture. because it's so easy to get wrapped up into a framework or a standard like ISA 62443, or on the IT side, ISO 27001. But I'm wondering, how do you, if we for the audience, what is really the difference between governance and culture? Like, if you could kind of sum that up, so that as they go forward and they attempt to capture their culture or improve their culture, that we're not tipping over into the governance side, because they are uniquely different for the organization.
Yeah, so I think
Uh,
Paul, I think Paul, that's like the carrot and the stick, right? A lot of ways, right? The governance or compliance, everything that comes down from the top is really the stick, but there has to be some carrots as well. Kind of
Right.
putting some incentives. You get to learn kind of new things, upskill yourself, and not everybody will kind of bite into the carrot, if I can put it that way, right? But there
Yep.
will be people, there will be kind of, it's culture is not an overnight thing, right? Culture is something that establishing that takes days, weeks, months, years, right? But you have to start somewhere, and that's where kind of putting learning modules out, setting up like conducting tabletop exercises, as Shamik mentioned, to make sure that, okay, who's involved, who's engaged, making sure at least drive a little bit of awareness and knowledge for that would really drive that kind of culture. Okay, I don't want to do that, because on that tabletop exercise, I realized that, oops, then this little error that I made really could drive major issues, right? I feel like culture is a much longer term thing than governance and compliance, but they go hand in hand.
Nice example of carrot and stick. I was going to tap upon that only, but one more thing we can refer to it as, governance is largely uh, for the top management to drive the program, and culture is usually, again the largest stakeholders are the leadership, because they are the one responsible for it, but usually that is community driven. Everybody in the community pitches up to create a culture, and everybody is having an equal stake in creating a good culture.
Many.
What I was smiling about was Shamik was talking about a champion program. Like, there are sometimes, especially in the world of cybersecurity, like people like you and me also included, there are some people who will keep on talking about cybersecurity. Whoever they say, they will say hello, hi, and all that, and they will talk about the next development that is happening in that security world, or if some event has happened, incident has happened, or in some new CVE has come. So those will not come from your governance. Governance is more of your graphs, chart, how much of tick mark have you gained, what is your maturity that you have, SDL maturity that you have reached. All those are governance. But culture, I see people really talk. They are quite enthusiastic. They are also enthusiastic in finding out what is going beyond their product, beyond their company, what is happening in the community, probably even beyond their domain itself. Like, even outside the domain of, may not be even industrial world, but in a different world, what exactly is going on? Are there security events happening? Is there any kind of a chip level of security vulnerability happening? And some people go to an extent of dissect to detail what to ask the CVE and then explain it to people who are around. So I think that is one factor that drives a cultural improvement.
I'm wondering, when we have governance in place, or we're implementing a program, we have, in many, as you said, we have bars, charts, and graphs that can show us the success of that program. Is it more difficult to have metrics or key indicators on the performance of your culture, let's say? Or is it kind of a feeling? You look around and you go, hey, things are pretty good, but is there something that the organization can look to? Are there key performance indicators? Are there specific metrics? What would be bars, charts, and graphs, let's say, for your culture program within the organization, so that you're having success and you can show that? Any of you, Shamik, maybe, or Kunal?
Yeah. So, I mean, so it's more, so there's no real, it will still be qualitative, right? It's not always 100%. I mean, there's no like solid KPIs, right? But
Right.
there can be things like the number of number of incidents that have been reported, if they're reporting kind of more things, even from a smaller perspective, it's about physical security, about kind of people walking around on the floor, or the network switches that maybe aren't as well connected or protected as they are. Those are some of the things that can be looked at. Also, from a cybersecurity training perspective, if you can kind of look at completion rates and more people actually attending. If you have exams, then maybe that can be a way that if people are actually investing time in kind of getting certified, or even participating in drills or tabletop exercise and really engaging, right? That those would be kind of some of the ways that you can then you can kind of add numbers to it, but it will still be, I mean, as we mentioned, there will be a qualitative element that you will just get from people on the ground, right?
Right.
So
Shamik,
I was just wondering.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. Oh, I was just wondering when Kunal was telling about numbers and charts, even the cultural elements, the moment it becomes numbers and charts and when they are tracked, it becomes governance.
Ah, that's a good way to put it.
Culture is culture.
And then Shamik, in your experience, what is, as we've talked about culture versus governance, what is the best way to get everyone on board within an organization, and then to keep them on board and keep moving forward?
Yeah, so so far the best way that I found, and which was impactful, as I have already mentioned, that was one unique approach. But to get that forward, it is a normal human mindset that after a few months probably, we are energetic when we first have that workshop or when that session. We need to be focused. We need to be always cyber vigilant. All those things will be there, but we need a refresher, not just the same training again and again, but some kind of exercise, some kind of reminder, or just reward somebody in the organization who has done some fantastic work, like Kunal bhai has just mentioned, right? You identify the flaws that are there in our progress. You can say, this is how I tried, sneaking certain things into our environment and I was successful. So that is something we should look at. So you encourage that kind of things, not doing it, but trying to doing it, and doing it successfully, and you reward them. So you will strengthen your security posture as well as the awareness among their fellow teammates.
Outstanding. I don't see that we don't have any questions that came through on the chat, but we had certainly enough that it looks like we're kind of hitting up on time here. So I wish we could certainly go for probably another couple of hours. Absolutely. But I do want to I want to take the time to thank each of you for all the information and insight that you were able to impart. I think it's wonderful, your individual backgrounds, and whether it's Minnie, who's been around for a really long time, or Kunal, you talked about being a noob, and then Shamik, of course, all the experience that you bring in the interactions with your clients. I really do appreciate the time taking for the audience and bringing each of your perspectives. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Paul.
you everyone for
Thank
attending,
you.
and
Glad
thank
to
you,
be
Paul,
here.
for being
Thank you.
such a wonderful host.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks all of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all of you.